Allow me to begin by thanking all of you, I'm sure I'm right in that, without fear of contradiction, for support for South Africa's approach to the International Court of Justice on behalf of the oppressed people of Palestine.
This is the journey to one Africa.
But before I begin, given that AFCON kicked off just a day ago, I wish to start by congratulating Mozambique for last night's match. You know, even as revolutionaries and politicians, from time to time, we must celebrate good community matters. And so 2-2 by Mozambique and 2-1 for a large part of the match is significant for us. I hope Bafana Bafana does as well. Program Director, Comrade Solly Mapaila, the two co-program directors of our session this morning, Comrade Deputy Minister Obed Bapela and the International Relations Subcommittee Deputy Chairperson of the South African Communist Party, Comrade Ben Martins, and of course, I must make reference to Deputy President Mashatile, who was here earlier with us. I also wish to recognize our Premier of Mpumalanga Province, Premier Mtsweni. I also wish to recognize the Prime Minister, Ambassador Bayoun of Sahrawi, and of course, recognize the person who has brought us here, our first Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Nomvula Mama Action Mokonyane. And I must recognize the Deputy Chairperson of ANC Mpumalanga, and that is Comrade Speedy Mashilo, the President of the Cuban Institute for Friendship Among the People, and member of the Cuban Five, Comrade Fernando Gonzalez Leot, distinguished ambassadors and high commissioners, distinguished leaders of civic organizations present here, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to begin by thanking all of you, I'm sure I'm right in that, without fear of contradiction, for support for South Africa's approach to the International Court of Justice on behalf of the oppressed people of Palestine. The intent of South Africa is merely to reinforce that a terrible harm and massacre is underway, and the world cannot sit in front of its TV screens watching Al Jazeera while a massacre occurs before our eyes. This is why South Africa chose to stand up, and we thank all those countries that have stood with us. So I'm really honored to have the opportunity to be with you at this Solidarity Conference today, and to speak briefly about the history of solidarity between Cuba, our continent Africa, but more specifically, Cuba and South Africa. Since 1994, the year in which we achieved our democracy, South Africa has been resolute in its support for Cuba and has led the charge in international fora calling for the United States of America to bring an end to the illegal and unjust economic blockade against this island nation, which is now a blockade in its 62nd year. South Africa has consistently voted in favor of the annual UN resolution calling for the end of the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States. We have also campaigned actively with civic organizations for the release of the Cuban Five and called on the US government to release them. We also lobbied international support for their release. The fact that one of the Cuban Five leaders is with us right here today is testament to the value of international solidarity. The fact that we in South Africa are free today is testament to the value of international solidarity. We all know that today Cuba is experiencing its worst economic crisis since the 1990s. The sanctions have had a devastating impact on that country, and I saw it for myself in November last year. Cuba's current GDP per capita is less than $10,000. The Cuban people cannot access basic food and medicine due to the tightened illegal economic embargo imposed by America. Given that Cuba imports a large part of its food and is not allowed to have sufficient foreign exchange to pay for food, while fuel prices have been going up and up. This has resulted in a very serious food crisis in that friendly country. Cuba not only suffers from growing shortages of food, but also shortages of medicine and consumer goods, and all of this has worsened in the past 4 years. It has been of 65 years duration, but the last 4 years have been among the worst. We as South Africa have tried to seek ways to assist, and in our own small way have provided assistance. It was our intention to make a sum of funds available for the purchase of essential food and medical items to provide to Cuba. Lo and behold, we were taken to court essentially by a right-wing organization in our country which claims to be fighting for the rights of Afrikaans-speaking people.